Welcome, dear guest, to Odd Tonic's 12 Days of Christmas Ghost Stories. In Victorian England, Christmas was the time to gather around the warm fireplace to share chilling tales of ghostly visitations. Odd Tonic is reclaiming this tradition by presenting ghost stories on every one of the 12 days of Christmas. They make for great personal listening or to share with friends and family as an icebreaker to tell true, unexplained tales of their own. Welcome to Day 11. Tonight's story comes from the book Haunted Healthcare by Richard Estep. Over the long course of her medical career as a paramedic, Trish thought she had seen it all. Responding to shootings, stabbings, and all manner of death, illness, and injury sometimes gives one a somewhat jaded view of life. We tend to think we have seen it all. But then, every so often, something happens which reminds us just how untrue that can be. One such experience happened to Trish back in 1991. The hospital had a reputation for being haunted. A lot of the employees, especially those who worked the daytime, just shrugged it off, dismissing the ghost stories and going about their everyday business. The night shift workers, on the other hand, were a different matter entirely. It seemed that practically every nurse who worked late there avoided the 7th floor like the plague. Patients were no longer placed on that floor, as there were issues with the electrical wiring, and it was said to be extremely haunted. Being quite the salty EMT with a side interest in all things paranormal, Trish naturally wanted to go up there and check it out for herself. Unfortunately, that was a no-go. As a safety measure, the elevator had been programmed to not stop at the 7th floor, and she didn't particularly feel like climbing up 7 flights of steps at the end of a long shift. One night, Trish and her partner were finishing up an interfacility transfer, which usually involves taking a patient from one hospital or nursing home to another. They had dropped the patient off on one of the upper floors, turning patient care over to the on-duty nurse, and wheeling their stretcher to the elevator for the return trip. Trish hit the button for the ground floor. The elevator began to descend. She was lost in her own thoughts, hoping that the rest of her shift would be a quiet one, when the elevator car suddenly stopped on the 7th floor. "Oh," she whispered. Suddenly, her desire to delve into the mysteries of the haunted floor wasn't as strong as it had been just a few minutes before. The elevator doors opened onto a long hallway that was completely black. 2 rows of open doors stretched away into the distance, disappearing into the gloom. The 2 EMTs stood there in silence for a moment, just staring into the darkness. Trish's partner broke the silence with a hushed whisper. "What do you want to do?" Wordlessly, Trish stepped off the elevator, wheeling the stretcher along with her. Putting on the brake to prevent it from rolling off, the 2 EMTs set out to explore the haunted floor, breaking out their flashlights to help them navigate. Their first stop was the nurses' station, long since abandoned save for a few scattered sheets of paper. "Hello," Trish called out. "Is there anybody there?" There was no answer. The EMTs decided to explore, prowling the hallways. Each patient room they passed had a fully made-up bed, the crisp white sheets coated in a layer of dust. The atmosphere felt heavy and oppressive. Trish was unable to shake the distinct feeling she was being followed, though whenever she turned to look over her shoulder, there was never a soul to be seen. A sudden voice, loud and scratchy, made the 2 EMTs jump halfway out of their skin. Fortunately, there was a very simple explanation. Dispatch was calling them over the radio checking in on their whereabouts and making sure they were okay. Telling the dispatcher that everything was just fine and they would be clearing the hospital and returning to service shortly, she let out a long, slow breath. The unexpected radio call had startled her. Tempting fate, her partner called out, "There's no such thing as ghosts!" Big mistake. As if in direct answer to her ill-chosen words, a blast of icy cold air suddenly gusted past them, making them both shriek in fear. Each and every one of the doors on either side of the hallway slammed shut, the dull thud almost deafening. Trish and her partner screamed again, all thoughts of further exploration now gone. They turned and bolted for the elevator, making to drag the stretcher inside without bothering to kick the brake off first. Except the doors wouldn't open. Just as they had been warned, the 7th floor elevator call button had been disabled. They were stuck up there. Trish tried to call out on her radio, but all she could get was static. Desperately, she tried to think of a solution. Cell phones weren't around back then, and with the walkie-talkie not working, that only left a landline. Suddenly, she remembered seeing a phone back at the nurse's station. To get to it, all she had to do was run the gauntlet of doors. Trish decided right then and there that if the doors all spontaneously opened themselves, there was a real chance she might need to change her underwear before the night was over. Fortunately for Trish and her partner, the journey to the nurse's station was uneventful, even if it did seem to take an age to get there. Finally, picking up the phone, she dialed security and explained her plight. Moments later, the elevator pinged and the doors opened. A security guard emerged, looking less than thrilled to be called away from whatever he was doing in order to fetch 2 wayward EMTs who had gotten themselves trapped. The guard beckoned them into the elevator. Trish and her partner managed to somehow squeeze themselves and the stretcher in there. Taking note of their pale faces and general frazzled appearance, he simply shook his head and chuckled. "Somebody should have warned you both. The ghosts up here on 7th just love messing around with the newbies." Everyone, it seems, has a story. If you're listening as a group, share it now. Or send it to Odd Tonic. We'd love to hear it. You can reach us at theparlor@oddtonicsociety.com. Until then, join us again tomorrow for another thrilling, true tale on Odd Tonic's 12 Days of Christmas Ghost Stories. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube for future Odd Tonic episodes of weird history, strange science, and the paranormal. Good night.